The galaxy remembered the day when humanity was cast out. It was not a quiet decision. It was a trial, carried out in the council halls of alien rulers. The great empires sat on their thrones of light, their voices cold and united. They had watched the humans for centuries. They had seen their wars, their hunger for progress, their refusal to kneel before stronger powers. To the other races, humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too wild. So the council voted. Humanity was banished. Their fleets were driven to the edge of known space. No star system would welcome them. No trade route would open for them. They were to drift into the void, forgotten by history. For the aliens, it was finished. They believed humans would not last even one generation in exile. The emptiness between galaxies was cold and cruel. Food would run out. Technology would fail. Children would be born into silence and death. The aliens thought they had solved the problem of humanity forever, but the humans did not vanish. The exile began with fear. Civilian ships carried millions of refugees. Families huddled together, watching the last light of their home worlds disappear behind them. Warships, broken and outnumbered, formed a weak shield around the fleeing convoys. Supplies were low. Spirits were lower. Many whispered that this was the end of mankind. The first years were filled with loss. Entire ships disappeared in the dark, their engines failing. Their people swallowed by the silence of space. Disease spread through crowded decks. Hunger grew sharper each day. Those who survived told themselves they lived not only for their own lives, but for the future of the species. Yet even in despair, something burned inside them. A spark the council had not counted on. That spark was human defiance. When food ran out, they searched barren moons and frozen asteroids, turning lifeless rocks into farms under domes of glass. When disease struck, they built crude hospitals in the belly of their ships and taught their children medicine. When engines died, they tore apart broken vessels to keep others alive. Every loss taught them something. Every mistake turned into a lesson. The aliens had thought exile would erase humanity. Instead, it forged them into something stronger. Generations passed. The first who had seen Earth's skies were gone, but their children carried their memory. They told stories of blue oceans, green forests, and skies filled with clouds. These memories became more than nostalgia. They became a promise. The promise that one day humanity would rise again. In the silence of the void, humans began to change. They learned patience. They learned unity. Old divisions of nation and language faded. There were no Americans, no Russians, no Asians, no Africans. There were only survivors. There was only humanity, and with unity came vision. The fleets that once ran in fear began to build. Small ships grew into larger ones. Colonies on dead worlds became cities of steel and light. Slowly, painfully, humanity was no longer just surviving. They were preparing. Alien scouts who ventured too close sometimes caught a glimpse of them. A forgotten human warship drifting between stars. A settlement hidden in the shadows of a black hole. Reports were sent back to the empires, but no one cared. Humans are dying, they said. It is only a matter of time. But time was not destroying humanity. Time was shaping it. In the hidden dark, a project began. The elders called it the Return. Engineers and scientists worked in silence, passing their knowledge from one generation to the next. They designed ships larger than mountains, armed with weapons no alien had ever seen. They studied the weaknesses of every empire that had banished them. They did not shout their progress to the galaxy. They whispered it to their children like a secret prayer. The council had banished them. The galaxy had forgotten them, but humanity had not forgotten. Humanity remembered everything: the years of hunger, the years of silence, the years of being treated as a threat and cast into darkness. The humans turned their pain into strength, their sorrow into fire, their exile into destiny. And now, far beyond the eyes of the empires, their fleets grew. The light of their engines burned brighter with every passing year. The promise whispered by the first exiles was now written into every child's heart. We will return. The galaxy had made a mistake. It thought it had ended humanity. But in truth, it had created something far more dangerous, something that would come back not as outcasts, not as refugees, but as rulers. And when that day came, the stars themselves would tremble. The galaxy believed humanity was finished. Decades passed, then centuries, and no great news came from the void. Alien scholars wrote in their histories that mankind had vanished, swallowed by the darkness. Children in alien academies learned that humans had been reckless creatures, burning their chance at greatness. For the empires, humanity was nothing more than a warning story. But far beyond the charts of alien maps, in the forgotten corners of the void, humanity endured. The first years had been survival. The next years became something different. In exile, humans built a hidden life. On barren moons, they created domes of light, filled with air and green fields grown under artificial suns. On asteroids, they dug cities deep into the rock, carving out shelter where there had been only silence. Ships that once carried refugees were turned into mobile colonies, drifting through space like wandering nations. Everywhere, the same words were spoken. We are not gone. We will not be erased. The forgotten years were cruel but also powerful. Humanity was cut off from trade, cut off from allies, and cut off from all the stars they once called home. Yet in that isolation, they found something no alien empire had: unity. Nations that once argued on Earth no longer mattered. Flags and borders had vanished in exile. People no longer said, "I am from this land" or "I am from that land." Now they said only, "I am human." This unity became their strength. Generations were born who had never seen Earth, but they were raised on its memory. Children learned about oceans they had never touched, skies they had never seen, forests they had never walked. To them, Earth was not just a lost home. It was a dream. A dream that lived in every heart, keeping them alive in the endless dark. And while the galaxy forgot them, the humans prepared. Ships grew larger. Engines grew faster. Weapons once simple became terrifying in their design. The silence of exile had forced them to innovate without distraction, without war among themselves, without politics to divide them. They focused only on survival, and survival demanded progress. In hidden star systems, humans built shipyards the size of continents. In secret labs buried in ice and stone, they worked on technology no alien had ever seen. They studied gravity, energy, and even time itself. No empire monitored them. No spy watched them, no enemy tried to stop them. For the first time in history, humanity was free from the galaxy's chains. The forgotten years became years of power, and yet mystery surrounded them. Alien traders whispered of strange signals echoing from the void. Pilots spoke of seeing shadows of massive vessels moving in the dark, but no one believed them. Humans are gone, the empires said. Those are only ghosts. But the ghosts were real. Deep in the silence, humanity created something larger than any alien dared to imagine. They began the Project Eternal. It was more than a ship. It was more than a weapon. It was the dream of their ancestors turned into steel and fire. A ship that could carry millions. A ship that could move between stars without maps. A ship that would one day lead the return. And always, they told the next generation the same story. One day, we will return to the galaxy. One day we will no longer hide. One day they will remember who we are. The forgotten years hardened them. No one outside cared about their suffering. No one offered them help. No one even whispered their name. Humanity learned that they could rely only on themselves. And in that loneliness they became something the galaxy had never faced before. An empire built in exile. The children of exile grew into leaders. The leaders became visionaries. Visionaries turned into architects of destiny. The galaxy believed humanity had been erased. But the truth was far more dangerous. Humanity had been waiting. It began as whispers carried on the comm channels of Outer Rim patrols. Small alien ships went out on routine surveys and never came back. At first, the empires dismissed it. Pirates, they said. Cosmic storms. Navigation failures. Space was full of dangers, but then the disappearances spread. Entire fleets stopped transmitting. Outposts fell silent. Trade convoys sent mayday calls and then vanished into the void. Something was moving in the darkness and no one knew what it was. The Council of Empires gathered again, just as they had when they cast humanity into exile. Their halls were bright with crystal and gold, but their voices carried unease. For the first time in centuries, they faced an unknown enemy. Reports conflicted. Some spoke of ships larger than cities. Others described weapons that cut through shields like they were paper. A few survivors whispered the unthinkable, that the enemy was human. At first, the council laughed. Humans, one ruler hissed. Impossible. They are dust long dead. But then the images arrived. A small alien craft limped back from the outer rim. Its black box recorder played its final transmissions. On the screen, the Council saw a fleet rising from the shadows. Gigantic ships, their hulls marked with the ancient symbol of Earth. Engines glowed like suns. Guns stretched across their frames like mountains of steel. The sight made even the proudest rulers fall silent. The humans had returned. For centuries they had been silent. For centuries they had endured the darkness. And now, when they appeared again, they did not come as beggars. They did not come as refugees. They came as conquerors. The first strikes were fast and brutal. Human fleets moved like predators through the dark, striking at weak outposts and border stations. They did not announce themselves. They did not demand surrender. They struck, destroyed, and vanished again into the stars. Alien empires scrambled to respond, but nothing worked. Their weapons were outdated against human shields. Their fleets moved like lumbering giants compared to the swift, deadly formations of humanity's warships. Even the most advanced alien fleets could not match the precision of human tactics. The galaxy began to tremble. In secret, the humans broadcast their first message across the stars. It was not long, not poetic. It was simple. A voice steady and cold speaking in the old tongue of Earth. We were banished. We were forgotten. But we endured. And now we have returned. Every empire heard it. Every leader felt the weight of those words. The race they had once cast aside had come back, not to seek peace, not to plead for mercy, but to remind the galaxy of their mistake. And with that message came a warning. Stand in our way, and fall. Leave us be, and you may live. The galaxy knew then that the humans were no longer a scattered people in exile. They were an empire forged in silence, in hunger, in struggle. An empire that had learned to fight the void itself. Alien worlds panicked. Some begged the Council to negotiate. Others demanded a united war to destroy the humans once and for all. But no one could agree because fear had already taken root. Each empire wondered if its neighbor would betray it. Each ruler wondered if their throne would be the next to fall. Meanwhile, the humans moved closer, step by step, system by system. They reclaimed old routes. They captured abandoned stations. They did not move fast, but they moved with purpose, as if following a plan written long before. To the galaxy, it was a nightmare come true. To humanity, it was only the beginning. Generations of children had been raised with one promise: we will return. And now that promise burned bright across the stars. The return was no longer a whisper. It was a storm. The galaxy thought humanity's return would come with fire and thunder. The empires prepared for great battles, for fleets clashing in the open, for storms of plasma and light across the void. But when the humans struck, they did not strike as conquerors shouting their arrival. They moved like shadows. It began quietly. An alien supply fleet carrying food and fuel vanished between systems. No distress call. No survivors. Only silence. Weeks later, a fortress world reported its defenses had gone dark. When patrols arrived, the world was empty. Entire cities had been evacuated. Every weapon dismantled, every vault of resources stripped away. Not a single shot had been fired. The humans were not waging war, they were unraveling it. In the council chambers of the empires, panic spread. Rulers shouted at one another, demanding answers. Where are their fleets hiding? How do they strike so fast? No one had an answer. Their intelligence networks failed them. Their spies brought back nothing. Their maps showed nothing but silence and stars, because humanity had learned to hide in exile. They had learned to fight not with numbers, but with patience. They struck where they were least expected, then vanished into the void before retaliation could even begin. Their ships slipped through shadows, their weapons silent until the final moment. To the galaxy, it was as if ghosts had risen from the dark to take vengeance. Fear spread faster than truth. Merchants refused to travel border routes. Soldiers whispered of invisible fleets. Civilians fled from planets near the rim, terrified they would be next. Even the proudest alien warriors began to doubt. How can we fight an enemy we cannot see? They asked. The humans knew this fear was their strongest weapon. Every strike was chosen with care. They did not waste their strength on random targets. They studied each empire's weaknesses. A fuel depot here, a shipyard there, a communications hub severed in the night. Slowly, piece by piece, they cut away the nerves of the galactic powers, and then, When the empires scrambled to gather fleets, humanity struck deeper. Entire armadas gathered to defend strategic worlds, only to find their command centers hacked. Their orders scrambled, their fleets turning against one another in confusion. Human infiltration teams had already been there, hidden in plain sight, rewriting the codes of war. The galaxy had once called humanity reckless. Now it called them ruthless. But humanity remembered the years of exile, the hunger, the silence, the despair. They remembered how no one had come to help them. They remembered being cast aside as if they were less than nothing. Now in the War of Shadows, they returned that silence to the galaxy. Still, the humans were not driven only by revenge. Their leaders spoke of survival. They knew the empires would never allow them peace. They knew that if they simply returned and asked for a home, the Council would try to destroy them again. The only path forward was power. Power so vast that no one could challenge them. And so the War of Shadows continued. Months turned to years. Alien fleets shrank. Empires once proud now trembled at their borders. Yet still, most of the galaxy had never even seen a human. They were an enemy both real and imagined. A legend whispered across taverns and barracks. If you hear silence in the stars, soldiers muttered, the humans are near. And slowly the balance of power shifted. Worlds that once cursed humanity now sent secret messages, begging for alliance, for protection, for mercy. Even alien leaders began to realize the truth. The humans were no longer a people in hiding. They were becoming rulers. The War of Shadows was not won with one great battle. It was won 100 small ways, in silence, in fear, in the unseen hand that shaped the galaxy without ever showing its face. By the time the empires understood, it was too late. Humanity was no longer returning. Humanity was already here. The galaxy had grown quiet, too quiet. Once the stars had echoed with the movement of countless fleets. Trade convoys, patrol squadrons, warships of proud empires, all filled the void with their light. But after years of shadows, those lights began to fade. Worlds once bustling with activity now stood uncertain, glancing at their skies with fear. Everyone asked the same question: when will the humans strike again? And then, without warning, they stopped striking. For months, no attacks came. Fleets patrolled their borders in nervous silence, waiting, but nothing happened. It was as if humanity had vanished once more into the dark. Some rulers dared to hope that perhaps it was over. Perhaps the humans had exhausted their strength. But they were wrong. One morning across the galactic core, the sky changed. Hundreds of alien worlds awoke to see vast silhouettes rising from hyperspace, ships larger than anything they had ever known. Colossal carriers, dreadnoughts, and fleets that stretched farther than the eye could see. They appeared not in shadows, not in silence, but in full view of every star and every world. Humanity had stopped hiding. Humanity had arrived. The message followed within hours. It was broadcast across every channel, every frequency, every empire. No one could ignore it. A single human voice spoke, calm, steady, unshaken by centuries of exile. We were cast into the dark. We were left to die. But we endured. We learned. We built. And now we stand before you, not as outcasts, not as beggars, not as ghosts, but as rulers. The supreme empire of humanity has risen. The galaxy will never banish us again. The words echoed in the hearts of millions. Across alien palaces, rulers trembled. Soldiers froze at their posts. Civilians gathered around glowing screens, unable to look away. Some wept in fear, others in awe. And behind those words, the proof filled the skies. Human fleets stretched across the stars like rivers of fire. Their warships gleamed with a design no alien mind could match, sleek, endless, alive with power. Their weapons hummed with energies that bent space itself. Their formations moved with terrifying precision, each vessel in perfect harmony with the next. The galaxy saw not just ships, but destiny made metal. One by one, worlds surrendered. Some bent the knee willingly, swearing loyalty to the new empire. Others tried to resist, but their fleets shattered in hours, their defenses torn apart like paper before the storm. Humanity did not waste time. They absorbed the conquered worlds, restored order, and moved forward with relentless purpose. What shocked the galaxy most was not their strength, but their discipline. The humans did not burn planets. They did not slaughter the innocent. They did not destroy for the sake of destruction. They ruled. They governed. They established law where chaos once thrived. For every enemy crushed, 1,000 more bowed and joined. The empires realized their mistake too late. Banished centuries ago, humanity had not died in the shadows. They had been reborn, forged in hunger, tempered in exile, unified in silence. Every scar, every wound, every memory of despair had been turned into a blade, and now that blade was pressed against the galaxy's throat. At last, the Council of Empires sent envoys, begging for peace. They offered treaties, tribute, and promises. But humanity refused to kneel to the very voices that had once cast them into the dark. The humans spoke only one truth. You cast us out. You forgot us, now you will never forget us again. And so the galaxy changed. Where once alien banners had flown, now the symbol of Earth spread from star to star. On 1,000 worlds, children learned new histories, not of humans banished, but of humans triumphant. On 1,000 more, rulers whispered in fear of the supreme empire. The galaxy had not been conquered by monsters nor by tyrants, but by a people who had been broken and still refused to die. The silence of exile had ended. Now the galaxy echoed with a new order. The age of humanity. And in the hearts of those who remembered the banishment, one thought remained unshakable. The greatest mistake the galaxy had ever made was not destroying humanity. The greatest mistake was letting them live.